Okay. Hi, everybody. Woo! This is Amertat, the storyteller, and today we've got a new story happening. It's going to be a whole story in one day. We're not going to do episodes today, so it might be a little bit longer. And hi, Gabrielle and Mary, and we're going to start a story. I hope you got some kids, because this is, well, it's for kids of all ages, really. And today's story, it's a new story we're going to do all in one sitting. Today's story is called Coyote Cousins Crash Chicago. Coyote Cousins Crash Chicago. I don't know if any of you know where Chicago is, but Chicago is this big city right in the middle of America. And it's a very, very busy big city, but actually in this city, excuse me, I'm going to adjust my microphone here a little bit. In this city, there's lots of people living, but right outside the city there were some animals called coyotes. Now, I don't know how much you guys know about coyotes. They're sort of in the dog family. They're, related to dogs, but they're like, you could say, you could call them wild dogs, right? I don't know if any of you ever seen the cartoon The Roadrunner. The little guy that goes beep beep, right, like that, and runs really fast. Well, he's sort of a coyote, I think. I think he was actually made after the idea of coyotes. Do you ever see a roadrunner? Beep beep, meow, and of course he was always getting chased by the wolf, right? So this is a story about two coyotes and their cousins. One is named Charlie, and one is named Cookie. Now, why do you think a coyote would have a name of Cookie? Well, it so happens, see, I told you these coyotes live near a big city called Chicago, and right when this coyote was born, the mommy went into town and went into the garbage cans, and looked around and found a bag of cookies. And so the first food that this little coyote ever ate after he had mommy's milk were cookies. So they decided they would just name her, Cookie. So Cookie and Charlie lived outside of Chicago, these two coyotes. And they would always, there was like a little hill, and they could look down and they saw all the lights of these huge, tall skyscrapers sticking up. And they would look at each other and they say, hey, we should go down there sometime. But they were afraid to go down to the city because there was so much traffic, trucks, buses, trains. It was huge traffic all the time, and they were never able to go into Chicago. Well, guess what happened?
What?
There was this thing that happened, this virus that came. They called it Corona or COVID-19. And when this virus came, everybody stayed home. And there was no more traffic, no more trucks, no more cars, no more trains. And the coyotes looked one day at each other and said, hey, it's so quiet down there. Maybe we can go and check out this Chicago place. What do you think, Cookie? Well, I don't know. I'm scared to go into this big city. I mean, it's really scary. Well, come on, let's be brave, said Charlie. We're coyotes, right? and we can see really well at night. So let's just wait until the sun goes down, and let's go down and check out Chicago and see what it's like down there. So they did. One night, just as the sun was settling down on the lake, because there's a big lake next to Chicago, these two coyotes and there was this huge freeway they had to cross. It was like 8 lanes of cars on both sides. But guess what? There are no cars. Everybody was staying at home. And so the coyotes walked across this huge freeway and into the city. And then there was these train tracks. And usually there's all these commuter trains going ding, 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 ding. Because, you know, where there's a train track and a road comes into the train track, they usually have this big arm, right, that goes down and closes off so the cars can't go through, right? And I don't know, and it's got these 2 flashing lights. And usually when the arm goes down and the flashing lights are on, there's a sound that goes ding, 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 ding. But for the coyotes, the arm was up, and there were no trains, and so they went across and into this big, big city called Chicago. Hi, Shawal. Hi, Jade and Tai. Hope you guys got kids, or maybe you can just be a kid at heart, like me. You know, that's cool. And so the coyotes, these two coyotes, this was the first time they'd ever seen a big city. And they didn't know anything about big cities. You know, coyotes have different sounds. You're probably most used to the sound their howl at night. But they also have sounds sort of like dogs. They go, and so they were talking to each other like that. And they don't really bark like dogs. No, they don't go arf, arf, but they do have a sort of a bark, which is okay. And so they were in the city, and the first thing they noticed is there was a lot of food in the city because everybody was shut down in their own homes, but they still had a lot of garbage. They didn't learn how to do no waste. So people would take their plastic bags and their paper cups, and they would throw it all out in the garbage cans. And since most of the garbage trucks were not working, they worked very little because people were frightened of this virus thing. There was lots of food in all the garbage cans. And so what did they do? They got on their back paws like this, and they pushed over a garbage can. You can hear it go clang, 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 clang. And the top, of course, opened up, and out from the garbage can came all of this food. Oh my gosh, they were so happy. And you know who was the happiest of all? Cookie. Because there was a bag of Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies, and there were 2 left inside the bag. And of course, Cookie was very sweet. She was really the sweetest little coyote you've ever seen. Charlie, would you like to have one of these cookies? I'll take one, and you can have one too. But Charlie was such a gentleman. And you know what gentlemen do? What? Gentlemen said, no, Cookie, you take them both. I know how much you love cookies. You go right ahead. And so, you know, they're like a dog. They got a long pointed snout. She was, yum, yum. But then, all of a sudden, they heard a sound behind them. This was some other dog's territory. and he was a big, fat bulldog. "Arr, get out of my garbage can!" Arr, arr, arr. And he started running toward them with his teeth. Arr. And you know, bulldogs, they're called bulldogs because they have the most powerful jaws. And if they ever put their jaws into you, you're not going to get away. Well, coyotes are very fast. You know, coyotes can go as fast as a car. They really can. They go about 40 miles an hour. They've been tested, which is quite fast. And so the coyotes took off, right? Zoom. Zoom. They took off. And the bulldog tried to chase them, but he was too fat. He gave up. And so they ran and they ran and they ran into the heart of the city. And they said, "I'm worried, you know, I might get lost." But they didn't care. They were having so much fun. They loved looking at all the tall buildings. They loved looking at all the lights. They found some extra bags of hamburgers because they went by a McDonald's. And you know, next to the McDonald's, you know, McDonald's leaves a lot of waste, right? And these coyotes were very happy because there were lots of pieces of hamburgers and French fries. I don't know if you know much about coyotes. Hi, Joanne. But these coyotes, they eat mostly meat, and most of the time coyotes eat little things like rabbits and squirrels and rats, and occasionally they'll work together and try to get a deer or something. But they also eat vegetables. They also eat fruit. They eat almost anything. And so but they never had McDonald's before. You know, this was the first time in their life they ever had a Big Mac, I'll tell you. And they were hooked. They once you eat a Big Mac, you're always going to want to come back, right? You guys like Big Macs?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
No.
Well, many people like Big Macs, but you know, in our last story we were talking about this family that were pescatarians. And pescatarians means that they don't eat what?
Meat.
They don't eat meat. Absolutely, they don't. But anyway, the coyotes do, and they were very happy until they heard another sound. This time, they were cats. They were the night cats, because cats come out at night too, just sort of like the coyotes. They've got really great eyesight. They can see at night, and they came over to them. And you know how cats sort of arch their backs, right? And their backs, the hair on their back stands up, and they got very sharp claws, right? But they're no match for coyotes. Oh no. And the coyotes turned around, and there were 5 cats coming at them. And the coyotes just turned around and stood their ground, and they went, rah, rah, rah. And the cats, like cats ran away, very far, far away. Well, it was starting to get late at night, and they said, maybe we better get back home, but we're lost. I don't know how to get back to our place anymore. And just then, guess what happened?
What?
There were actually some city coyotes living inside of Chicago. And these city coyotes were watching these two little cousins play out there, and there was an old grandpa coyote. You know how old a coyote lives?
No.
A coyote lives about 10 years. So a 10-year-old coyote is a grandpa, maybe a great-grandpa, right? And so this grandpa coyote came out. He was sort of feeble. He could barely walk, so not too straight. Okay, kitties, well, you want to go home? So go down to this street, and then you turn back this way, and you come to a big lighted street corner with like a circle, and you go across that circle of roads, and you keep going straight. You'll come to the train tracks, you'll come to the freeway, and then you can go back to your home. Oh, thank you so much, Grandpa. Thank you. What can we give you? Well, I'm okay. Everything's fine. They said, no, Grandpa. We want to give you something. I'll take, look. And they found inside of this beautiful McDonald's garbage can, they found a little bit that was left in a McFlurry. Oh my God, said Grandpa. I haven't had a McFlurry for so long. And so they gave Grandpa the McFlurry. They started on their way back to where they came from because the sun was almost getting ready to come up. And coyotes, you know, they are night animals. They don't like to be seen in the daytime because they're afraid of people. You know, if you ever see a coyote, you don't really have to worry because they're more afraid of you than you are of them. In fact, if you see a coyote, you can go running after the coyote and he'll run away.
You can try to touch the coyote or stick.
Well, you shouldn't try to pet a coyote. They're not like a dog. They're really wild. And they might take that you're trying to hurt them, and they might actually snarl at you, you know. So you don't want to touch them. But anyway, these two coyotes, Charlie and Cookie, they found this big circle road. They went across the circle road. They came to the train track. Ding, 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 ding. No train, so they went across the train track. They came to this busy freeway, empty of cars. But just as they started to go across the road, they saw these two eyes, these big, bright, white eyes coming toward them. It actually was a Jeep car, and it was coming so fast. Hurry, hurry, hurry! And they ran across the road, just barely missing the car, because they didn't expect to see any cars on the road, but there was this one Jeep there that was out. Don't know how he got away from quarantine, but you got to be careful. Even if you're in quarantine, you got to look both ways when you cross the street. And then they came back to the hill where they used to stay every night and look at the city, and they looked at each other, and they rubbed up against each other, and they sort of nuzzled together, the two cousins, Cookie and Charlie. They said, that was so much fun. I want to go back there again. We're going to go back again because since this virus thing, there are no cars at all in the city, and we can go down to the city. And the moon was just... And the moon was just starting to come up over the hill. And so what they did, right, they sat and looked at the moon. And you know what they said? Exactly. They stood there proud. They lifted their head into the sky. So that's the story for today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to share, just one second, if you want to share the story, it's going to be on my YouTube at This is Amertat channel. So it'll be on there. It'll be live here for 24 hours. And thanks all for watching. And if you've got any kids or grandkids like me, I got my grandkids watching here on Zoom. If you've got grandkids like me, share it. Love you guys. I'm gonna miss Monday. There'll be another story on Wednesday and Friday of next week. It'll be a 2-part story. One second, Tatra will be right with you. Bye, everyone. Good night.